Terry. I know, now we got to get serious, Terry. Choo,
Pulling it in.
The 1,000 raving fans that Tim Ferriss talks about, do you believe that they can harm a brand long-term, meaning an owner might become deaf to the greater vision by only focusing on their 1,000 raving fans?
I think that's 100% true. And I think there's evidence out there of that happening all over the place. Yeah, I can...
Give examples, by all means.
Well, I think the dangerous thing there is that you've got too many people telling you to steer your ship right or left, which takes, like you said, takes you off of the vision. And as somebody who likes to look at way ahead, that's very distracting. I often hear lots of folks saying, "Well, why are you doing that? Interesting. Why are you doing that? Huh?" And they're not picking up the vision part. So that the example resonates with me in that sense. It's one thing to have 1,000 raving fans. That's great, but don't let it undermine your vision. I think it'd be better if it seasons your vision. You do want to take inventory. You do want to survey your people, and I think you mix that with your vision, because I think there is going to be some things people don't understand about where you're going. But you can't. You want to keep those fans loyal too. So
That's where it gets tricky.
Taking all of that with a grain of salt and making sure that you're keeping them happy, but you're helping them understand where you're going. I think that element it's just as tricky with the fans as it is with your staff. You do the same thing with your staff. I mean, you've had people work for you that don't subscribe to the vision, right?
100%.
Right. So it's like you typically are still going to keep moving forward. You're going to listen to them, and you may adapt some things, but you're still going to keep moving forward, right?
100%. Do you think that is... the first thing that comes to my mind is CrossFit.
Sure.
When you say that, like, my mind immediately pops to CrossFit. It was a brand that all in on its 1,000 followers, but they didn't see the vision because the Visionary had a very closed vision, in my opinion.
Correct.
What do you think about that example? What's another one that maybe comes to your mind that you think of?
That's a great example. I know a little bit about some of those as far as looking back on it. I like I think they did listen to some things. Like when you go to a different CrossFit gym now, you're not dealing with, I feel like coaches are better.
I agree with that.
You know, somebody somewhere was listening to something, you know, because that was the biggest squabble everybody had, is that everybody, you know, just because you're a coach doesn't make you a trainer. And I'm worried about form, and they're running us through things too fast. People are getting injured. So I think the adaptability there is to take, okay, well, they're listening to the either the critics or the 1,000 raving fans, and they're like, okay, there's an element here we cannot avoid. It's just too loud. Mm-hmm. We have to address it. So I think that's a great example of that too, for sure.
You and I have had a great lunch. We met at Nectar, a good friend of ours, Joe.
Yeah.
I am going to let you say your last name so I don't bastardize it and all for everybody on the internet forever to make fun of me because I didn't take phonics. But introduce yourself, and I'll give the rest. But I want to get into is the visionary side that you and I talked about.
Sure,
That's
sure.
often lost in business.
Sure, yeah. The last name looks like Barga, but it's pronounced Bargy. And all I can do is apologize for that.
Sounds made up. Did you do this to be fancy? Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could say I had something to do with it. I got nothing. I took what they gave me, you know?
Yeah.
You have quite the entrepreneurial heart, though.
For sure. Yeah.
I want to just get in the basics of where we talk. So, owner of Nashville Fit Magazine.
Right.
The Music City Fit Expo.
Correct.
How many other 82 things do you have your hands in currently?
I feel like it used to be 82 things.
Okay, so we've dwindled down.
It's really just 3 primary things. It's the 2 you've already mentioned.
Okay.
Plus, we do holistic wellness retreats. When I say we, it's my wife, and I have a different business partner for that. And I did just launch something new.
What was it?
Bourbon Magazine.
Actually, we're bourbon fans, so.
Well, then where is it? Let's go.
Yeah.
This brew's got a lot of things, but not bourbon. No, I'm just
It's
kidding.
outside.
It's actually 6 a.m. while we're taping this, guys.
I need my breakfast bourbon.
Yeah.
yeah, we launched I've done a few bourbon events, and I'm in a few bourbon groups, and I also have a buddy who's a little down on his luck with jobs. So I'm like, you know what? I got an idea for you. And I pitched it, and he's like, I'm in. And I got a couple of other guys involved, and he's running it. But the goal is the system that we've created for NFM should work for the Bourbon Magazine just as well. I like to think the system that I created for NFM can save any print magazine from failure.
Let's get into that.
Segue.
Because you didn't start Nashville Fit Magazine.
That's
it
correct.
actually has a story to it, and you were possessed and loved it so much you kind of went in and took over. So you want to give a little background on that, and then Robo, I'll let you kind of get ready to key something up.
Yeah, boy, I'm going to try to keep the long story very short.
You can go long. We have time.
Okay.
Whatever makes
you
make
say
sense.
that.
Well, you know how.
The story so I've been in Nashville for 16 years, moved from Ohio, started my fitness business in Ohio before the housing market crashed. Because of that crash, thank you, GM getting a bailout from the government. When GM got their bailout, they pulled all of their warehousing and all of their manufacturing out of Dayton, Ohio. Well, there goes my clientele. Luxury item, first thing to go typically is personal training. You get cut, right? So wife, myself, we had one boy at the time, one kid. She was pregnant with the second. My mother-in-law still hates me for doing this. I picked up the family and we moved to Nashville. Did part-time work doing something else for a hot second to get us there and get second baby here. And then I launched what then was really just NashvillePersonalTrainer.net. Got it off the ground. I literally did that for about, let me think through this, about 12 years. Before I ultimately got out of the gym business. But in the process of that, Ryan Freebean comes to town with talking about doing this thing called Nashville Fit Magazine. He does these gym tours. He goes all across and he's working out at all these gyms. And he's getting to know all these business owners and he's creating cool events. This is before he actually launched the print magazine. And he came to my gym. We got to talking. We hit it off, much like you and I did. And then the wheels start turning for me. And I'm paying attention to what he's doing. And I'm like, this guy's doing what I feel like all of us should be doing. Convicted in the sense of I wanted to be in that position where I'm bringing community together to collab as opposed to staying in our separate boxes and just competing. There's plenty of people in Nashville for us all to serve. The goal is to make Nashville a healthy place. Why don't we, what does it look like to work together? And I saw Ryan doing that. Obviously, he's doing it for a publication. He's creating really cool events to try to bring the community in to mingle with the fitness community, the fitness industry. And I wanted to be a part of that. And I got to do some stuff. I dabbled with Ryan a little bit, but my mind was always, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to keep watching because at some point I would love to be in the business, if not own the business. Fast forward, post-COVID, like fresh out of COVID, I was realizing that there's a lot of my friends I haven't seen on social media. I wonder where they're at. Ryan was one of them. I was like, I wonder if Ryan just left town. So I texted him. No, I'm still here. Cool. I would love to catch up and get coffee. He's like, yeah, man, that'd be awesome. So in our coffee meeting, he tells me that he is completely burnt out. Doesn't want to do the magazine anymore. Matter of fact, he had sold it to Nicole Swickle. The expo, wasn't doing anything with it. It wasn't, he had those things running collectively. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, do you mind if we pick up the mantle and take off with it? And he goes, not at all. Like, go for it. He's like, I'll support you. I'll help you. I'll make an introduction with you, Nicole. So that was the beginning. So I took it with his permission. I took the expo, went to my buddy Roy Mangrum, Barbell Voodoo. Hi, Roy. Hope you're watching this.
Hey, Roy.
Like and subscribe. I got you. That led us, when I called him, I was like, hey, you want to do this thing with me? Because I didn't want to do it. Like, I've done entrepreneurship by myself for a very long time, and it can be a very, very lonely place.
It's very lonely.
And it will take you twice as long to do it by yourself if you don't have a good partner. And I didn't know Roy very well, but I knew he was smarter than me, and I wanted to team up with somebody smarter than me to achieve the goal of making this the Arnold of the South. So when I called him, he was like, hell yeah. Like, he didn't, he could have said, who is this again? That's how much we talked. So yeah, he was in, and that part. So we took the expo. We took about, I don't know, I think we took about 13 months to kind of just get our bearings to get the first one launched. I think we decided we were going to do it in June of one year, and we took an entire year to get it going. Right after that, I'm like, I'm going to get this magazine one way or another, or I'm going to start my own. That was my mentality. So I actually made a magazine for the expo, and I called it the Music City Fit Magazine, assuming that I wasn't going to be able to buy the Nashville Fit Magazine, because I had reached out and tried one other time, and I got ghosted. I never heard back. So after I did that, and all the social media stuff came out, and everyone was really excited, then I hit up Nicole, and I'm like, can we talk about the magazine? And she agreed. And then we come up with a deal that she was really happy with, and we became the new owners. So when I became the new owner, I realized there is no structure to this Business. There's no email list to this business. I don't even have a logo. We basically bought a website, a Facebook page, and an Instagram page. Nothing else.
And that was just for the familiar of the brand that was already there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thankfully, the brand did have some brand power. I mean, people know the brand, and they missed it, and they were excited about it. So that brand recognition is all Ryan. Any type of community buy-in to the Nashville Fit Magazine was all Ryan. Like he just knocked that stuff out of the park, and it sat dormant for 2 years, but we're back, baby.
Go ahead.
When you sat in that first meeting with him, going to coffee, you didn't really know what happened, and you kind of made that ask in the moment, can I take this and run with it?
Right.
Did you already have the vision, or did you just see potential and thought, I'll come up with the vision along the way?
It was definitely the latter. It was, let's just secure it, and then we can figure the rest out later.
Yeah.
Because I knew I had Roy too that would help with that when we actually did it. And for a minute there, he was like, no, you're crazy. Like you don't want the magazine, because what does everybody say about print?
It's dead.
It's dying. That's why I was going to ask you, why did you want to go to print? That was my first question.
Yeah. So everybody thinks print's dead until you're on the cover of it, and then you want to read it. Right. So it does have that community tie-in, right? And if I can go and find those unsung heroes that have been in the industry for a very long time, and I can feature them, well, suddenly print's not dead anymore. People are very excited to see that magazine. That being said, print cannot support a business, I don't think. I think it needs to be multifaceted, and that much we've proved. But yeah, like, once I realized that there was no structure or systems, we immediately started building that. And out of building all that stuff and getting all that stuff squared away, like I couldn't hire anybody because I didn't have what that job description looked like. I couldn't produce that job description because I didn't have a process for that job. Like what are we looking for as far as how to achieve excellence in this position? So we had to do all of that stuff. But as we were doing it, I think I was doing that, and we were launching a magazine anyway. They're like, what's the best one to launch to build the list? And that was the Best of magazine, because everybody's in there. In order to vote for your favorite trainer, you got to enter your email address. So that built the list back up so that we can go from there, and we can start generating traction, distribution, events, marketing dollars. And then during this process, I'm realizing releasing a magazine quarterly is not lucrative. How do we change this? And the bigger question is, how do you give the marketing members, the people that are paying to be in the magazine, how do you give them more for their money? How do we over deliver? And then that's how the other forms of all the other mediums came out of the magazine to where we're now a media company as opposed to just a magazine. So, yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah.
I can tell your wheels are turning. So I was like,
Yeah, just a follow up on that one. You were talking about, coming up with the processes, trying to whittle it down, but your background doesn't necessarily match anything in that industry.
You're 100% right.
Were you just coming up, making stuff up as you went? What resources did you use?
Background isn't. That's the fun part about business. On a lot of levels, they're not all the same, but on the foundational levels, they're all very similar. right? If you're going to run a landscape company, you're still going to need systems and processes and job descriptions. That's a no-brainer. And up until this point, I had been mentoring and coaching young trainers and launching their businesses. And then I had a few people that were above the launch that were already running businesses. And those folks, like, in order to hire somebody and expand, they needed to let go of some things. Well, they couldn't let go of those things without those processes. So I'd already known some of that stuff. I just implementing it. Mm-hmm. So as far as process is concerned, I didn't know what an editor-in-chief did. I didn't know what a publisher did, and I had to learn all that stuff for sure. So yeah, just, books and things.
Yeah, we were talking about that before we hit record. That I was like, this has pretty much kept me alive in business the last 14 years of my own, 9 years as a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
My thought immediately goes to where I want to ping to. You sound very visionary, like me. We sound like the people who are going to be like, oh, I can turn that and make that work. Just let me have at it.
The gift and a curse, yeah.
Who does your integration? Because we're the people that we can see it, but we're not going to make it go because we find shiny ideas all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So you run a rocket fuel visionary integrator model similar to me. I wanted you to talk about that because your integrator is different than mine. Mine is not my wife, from what I can tell.
Right.
It is a business person that I've been in business for a few years. I'm trying with my wife. But how did you understand that you were the guy that could see it, but you recruited the people to help you drive the car, I guess, to say?
I would say, man, that introspection, first of all, you have to have some self-awareness. Mm-hmm. You got to look around for a second and say, why am I lonely? Why am I the only one who cares about X? Right? Oh, you read a couple books and you do a couple of what are those personality style tests, like your strengths tests, and you realize,
Finder. He thinks it's horoscope, but I don't.
Yeah, Strengths Finder is a good example. It's to me one of the more sound ones. Less frou-frou, and they can get weird. But you realize that, you're high output. Oh, you're artistic. Oh, you're in the vision category. This, that, and the other. Up until that point, though, I just knew that I married my complementary opposite in my wife. She thought differently than me. I hate numbers. She loves numbers. Right? I get on the phone and I answer the phone differently. She gets on the phone and, hello, thanks for calling. And she's dialed into customer service. She actually went to school for that, so she's great at it. So naturally, I had an integrator built into my relationship. What I had to learn was, in order to save my marriage, how much do I load her down on this new one? So I initially kept her out of the very beginning stages of Nashville Fit Magazine for that reason, and I leaned on Roy, who is more of an integrator than a visionary, based on his work history, but he's definitely a visionary. Don't mishear me. I think you get to the point of understanding your differences, and you start to be able to fill them in just out of necessity because it's expensive to hire an integrator. Now, this is a long way to answer your question. Now my integrator is Jen Spice, who works for me. She's my director of operations. So she makes sure things get done. And she relies on me to drive things forward. And she'll let me know when I get too far out and I'm asking too much. And she'll also let me know if she doesn't think that where we're going is a good idea. And so will Roy. Roy's the business partner in both things. So, but yeah, and then now my wife is back into the business, but I've been on her about, this isn't long-term for you. In order to be good at this, you need to make your own process sheet, and then we need to take and make a job description out of it. And the goal is to train somebody else to be good at this, like you are. She has just this weird self-confidence thing where she doesn't think she can, that she's surviving and not thriving. And she's like, I think she's an administrative genius. But she's also juggling family, marriage, work, her own hobbies, things that she wants to do. We got grandkids.
Sounds to me like your companies thrive because you are very self-aware.
I mean, I try to be.
Yeah, well, I think that's a journey of entrepreneurship. Like,
Yeah.
the longer you go, the more you get your balls kicked up in your throat, the more
Right.
self-aware you get.
Yep.
But you see something that I saw which was, I was great at ideas, but I could never make anything go. And that had been the story of my life in even my Homeland Security. I was the guy who would go on these committees, let's do these things, but I would watch nothing ever happen.
Right.
So then I read the book Rocket Fuel, I've read Traction, other things. I was like, that's where Strength Fighter came into play. I could understand the visionaries from the integrators and being able to start deciding, all right, maybe you're not 100% fit here, but like you said, you could color in. And I think that's where small businesses fail. They don't rely on other people to color in because it's very much in small business, you think everyone's out to screw you over.
100%.
And when you talk about collaboration versus competition, I feel the same way because I'm like, look, just because I know I'm going to be here every day and you're never going to lose me, I'm going to be competing with you, does not mean I don't want to be friendly, don't want to help you,
Right.
because it'll make everyone better.
Yeah.
How do you sell the integrator roles to people on your team? Because that's been hard for me because everyone thinks, the visionary, they always want to be the Steve Jobs.
Feels flashy. Yeah.
Yeah, the flashy, but sometimes, the real work is in the back. How do you sell that?
I don't typically have to sell it because now you can see it coming a mile away.
Okay.
Like,
How so?
it's just a conversation. Typically I can figure out where you're at on one side or the other. Like if you're all hype, like if you're in the hype zone and you're very agreeable and you're like, yes, oh yes, yeah. And then what about this? Like I can already tell that person is sharing that same brain that I have. And when you get and almost always is evenly matched with an extrovert and introvert too. Almost. And maybe, I don't know that. Are you introverted?
I'm introverted, extroverted, meaning.
Okay, same here.
Yeah,
Same here.
me say both.
That's what I mean.
I can do it when I need to do it. Otherwise, I'm pretty by myself.
That's what I mean. I call it practiced extrovert, but
Yeah, that's a good way to say
yeah,
it.
I still need to recharge on my own. When I meet those folks that need to recharge on their own, my initial thought is, oh, you're of the design mind, you're the artistic mind. You could be a visionary, and I don't need too many of those on one team because you don't need a bunch of chiefs and not enough Indians, but I do have a few of those, and they make great department leads. So that's how I do it. I haven't really thought about. I think Traction does a good job of calling it an integrator. I was at you guys are familiar with Russell Brunson, ClickFunnels?
Yeah, the ClickFunnels. He, some of his books are really, really good.
Yeah, I think he's a straight shooter. I have one problem with that whole group of people is that the bigger they get, the harder they are to get close to, and they monetize how close you can get to them. And that bums me out a little.
So when we were I was at Bedros spoke at Vince's event. Bedros was telling me, he's like, yeah, for $100,000 a year, you're in my circle. You need my marketing guy. I got my marketing guy and all this stuff, but it was $100,000.
Okay, that's a good example.
If
Yeah.
you pay me $100,000 a year, I'll let you in my circle, Jeff.
Seems like an open door for everybody.
Yeah.
But, you bring up a good point because we had actually talked some of this, just him and I as friends. Like, at what point do you get what you need to get?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's exactly it. Like, but anyway, it was at one of their events. I went to Funnel Hackers Live because I was in the process of trying to learn everything I could possibly learn about business when it comes to sales and sales funnels. And I just got into that, into the, well, who's doing this the best? And I ended up at a Russell Brunson event. And that's where he said it from the stage. He's like, who here is a visionary? And raise your hand.
Say that room, raise their hand.
Raise your hand. And then he didn't use the word integrator. I can't remember the word he used, but it was along the same vein. And he said, raise your hand. There were 6 of them. And he said, all right, you visionaries, look around. Those people are your best friend. If you want to get something done, those people need to be on your team. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it makes you kind of look back at everything you've ever done and your team that you've built in the past. And you're like, okay, I can see where that matters a lot. And I immediately reflected on my marriage. Like, I have an idea of what I want to do. My wife makes those things happen. She's like, if that's what you want to do with it, it's X, Y, and Z. It's like, I got it now, and that is how I got to read the book Traction. And, it helped me change the way I built business in the future.
I tend to see quite a bit of people who call themselves a visionary, and really it just seems they're lazy and they don't like working.
attacked.
And so they're saying, I'm a visionary. I come up with an idea. And it's like, what idea have you ever come up with?
Preach.
What idea have you ever done?
Yeah.
It's just all, glory hunting.
And it's what
the day.
Yeah. And then I can speak for me. I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but you don't want, on some level, you don't want to be this guy because you're pushing all the time. You can't shut off that part of your brain. It's so hard. And it's really easy to get distracted because you see something that a little gasoline, and you're making dollars, right? Like, I know he's over there thinking the same thing. And it's also, I think it feels lonely on that level. Like, it feels like no one's, this can come across egotistical, and that is not my angle here. When I say it feels lonely, what it feels like to me is that I'm pushing so far ahead of everybody else that they're back there, but I left them there because I'm always up here thinking, and not back here enough to bring them along with me. So over the course of years, I'm an old man now, almost 45 years old. I try not to take 15 steps ahead. I try to only take 5 steps ahead. When I go to talk to an investor or I go to talk to somebody that I want to partner with, I try to not go full tilt. Like, here's all we want to do, because it a little bit of system overload, but yeah, I don't think anybody should ever want to be in this position. If you're in it, great. We can help you, right? You guys can help. But I don't think it's not flashy. It's not. There's no glory here.
I'll be honest with you. I wrote about it recently. Like when quitting's for you.
Yeah.
It was like just something that came to me, and I was like, there isn't at least once a week that I don't want to quit this pressure that I have.
Yeah.
Because I remember what my life used to be like before I had to think like this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like once you're equipped with that key and you turn it over, there's no going back.
Yeah.
So you have 82 different things going on. We've established that. How do you balance, your marriage? How do you balance personal time? How do you balance recharging?
That's a good one. Marriage is very, very specifically, and this is going to sound almost cultish to some people. My wife and I came up with the plan. We hit a rough patch 10 years into our marriage. And 10 years in, I had owned a business for about 3 years. We had 2 kids. We had adopted 2 more. We had 16 trainers. So we weren't gelling because we were missing each other entirely between the kids' school schedule and them getting off to school and her making lunches and dealing with that, and then coming to the office, and then her going home. She picks up the kids and I'm staying there until, all hours of the evening. We were missing each other. So what we did in the marriage, first thing is like, all right, we're going to go to bed at the same time and we're going to get up at the same time. So we put the kids to bed. This is years ago now, because 3 of my kids are out of the house. We'd put the kids to bed at 7 and we'd go to bed at 9 because I get up at 4:30. So she would get up at 4:30 with me, and then I would leave for the gym at 5:30, 5:45. That 2 hours and an hour, like 2 hours in the evening and an hour in the morning, gave us actually time to 1, complete conversations, 2, be intimate, right? 3, make plans, have fun, play a game, watch a TV show, do whatever. In the morning, we can discuss our day. We can get on the same line with the schedule. It's time for us to read. Like, we used to read together. I don't do it as much anymore, but we would have that time together. And then we would take, and I told Jeff this at our lunch meeting, I said, we take one honeymoon every year. So 7 days, just her and I, 7 to 10 days, just her and I. The kids don't exist. Sorry, kids. I know you're not listening to this, but that's the marriage balance. And that hasn't changed, and it has been a lifesaver. It's given us that ability to talk. It looks different now with a 16-year-old child, and or a 16. He's not a child, but you know what I mean. We do watch our grandchild far more in the beginning than we do now, but now our evenings look like a long walk, So we'll either have dinner. It's usually have dinner and then take a 30-minute walk with the dog. And that's how we actually can finish some conversations and talk about some of the things that have happened during the day, and kind of catch up on that level. Then you asked about balance. Where else?
Just personally, how do you recharge?
Yeah, the recharging thing is I have to have friends and circles and places where I don't feel as inclined to start a business, because I will get a hobby and I'm like, oh man, if you just did this thing, you could turn this into revenue.
So restaurants, right? No one wants that. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it is tricky. So I got involved in bourbon.
Yeah.
So I got in a few bourbon groups. And it's a friend reset, right? It's a different circle of friends. We don't share the same things. Actually, most of my guys in the bourbon group, for all of them at one point, were working at Dave Ramsey at Ramsey Solutions.
Really?
So I got invited into their group. They started the group within Ramsey Solutions. Now 60% of those guys aren't there anymore, but they're still in the group. They've all made different job and life choices at this point. But I was definitely the odd man out. I'm the only one in shape, like the only one who ate well, right? The only one that they didn't work at their place of work, and the only thing that tied us all together was bourbon, and that was one of the big things for me, and to kind of keep me in balance in that way. I just needed to get away from people that I would normally talk to business.
Do you have a guess how many people at Ramsey Solutions have neck tattoos?
It's a big fat goose egg.
Yeah, yeah.
7 interviews too to work there, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of interviews.
I have a question for you. How do you manage your phone during these breaks, during these times where you can't look at it, you can't because that's what stresses me out as visionary.
Yep.
It's because I'm always wanting to tinker, I'm always wanting to keep just moving, and I understand I need to be present, but my damn hardest spot is my phone.
Right. I put it down. Actually, a lot of people get annoyed with me because I don't answer their texts, even my friends. Right around dinner time.
Yeah, I mean, that's just normal stuff to me, I guess.
Normally I work till right around, which is a lot, still 12 hours a day, but I work right till around 6. And then I'll have dinner. And then we'll do the walk. And I usually leave my phone. I don't take the phone on the walk. And I come back, I will check it, and I will shut off all my apps. And then I'll plug it in, and it plugs in next to my computer, which is in my office. It doesn't go upstairs. It does not go near the bedroom. And it stays there. And that's where it stays until the morning. And then I'll pick it up. I usually pick it up around 5:30. And I get up at 4:30. So 4:30. So that part hasn't changed. I just don't touch it. And my wife is my accountability partner, especially in the morning. Like, don't let me touch that phone. Because I will. Because I want to get to work. You wake up driven.
Oh, I know. That's why I tell people in small business, when they come to me for advice, they'll be like, hey, I want to run a business. Mm-hmm. I'm like, first thing I say is, how are you going to compete against people who are up at 3:30, who are foaming at the mouth to get to their phones at 5 a.m. to begin the day? Because that's the mentality you have to take if you're going to do this. It's not what the business gurus and all them say on the internet, 100%. Where they're like, oh, go live and see the world and your purpose will be in work. I'm like, no. Your best years are when you're young. Your best years where you could drive yourself to grind into dust and get it done. Yeah. But I'm like you, like, how do you beat people like that, in business? And I try to give that honest advice. Like, that's really what it is.
And that's what you need to give. Roy and I got a podcast, we're 4 episodes in, but it's called Ground Up. And it's the reason it's named Ground Up is because you're building the business from ground up, but you've also been ground up by the business. And that's that is, I mean, that the purpose of the podcast is to talk about the hard stuff. Because it's not for everybody, and it is a freaking roller coaster. And if you're starting something, like the magazine's a good example, we just hit year 3, I think, year 2 of ownership. First 2 years of any business is 70, 80 hour work weeks. Your weekends blur into Monday.
What's a weekend? Yeah.
What's a weekend is a great question.
Day 1, day 7, day 0, all the time.
Who just walked through? Oh, that's my kid. When did he get so tall?
When
did you grow a mustache? Like, right? It's like
I'm like that. My youngest right now. I'm like, God, facial. What's going on here?
When did that happen?
That mustache.
And suddenly I'm so proud. I don't think that's avoidable, unless somebody can show me hard data on it being avoidable. I don't see, and the problem that typically falls out of that is that if you don't pull your head out in year 2 and think about what you've achieved and rest in it for a second and then start setting some boundaries, you will perpetually work that much and you will drive every person who cares about you away in your life. Because no one wants to be around that guy. Because you're either high functioning and you got a zillion ideas, or you're completely dead and exhausted and you've got nothing to contribute. There's no middle.
Yeah. No,
Have you ever worked for someone else? Yeah.
Have I ever, you mean partnership? Or?
No, I mean just straight up had a job, worked for someone else,
Yeah,
or
no.
always just said no.
Here's the funny part about that. I have, yes, the last job that I held for somebody else was, I left that job in 2007.
funny story. I left my job in 2007, so I'm curious to hear yours.
Yeah, that was the last time I worked for somebody. I've always had it, and maybe this is a problem that I share with other visionaries, but I feel like I've always had a problem with authority.
Yeah.
So when I get it, when they come down with, well, this is how we do this thing, and it's not that I have a problem with them. It's like, well, I think your process would be better if you did it this way. And looking back, I can say that. In the time, I was just like, I'm not doing it that way. You know, I don't know why. Just not going to do it that way. But I think I agree with Jeff on this. Like I feel like at least once a week that you want to go. You wish you could punch a clock somewhere. Like you wish you could work for somebody else for a hot second. I know it would get old.
Oh, I'd be wanting to quit with it by the end of the day. But
By the end of the day or end of the week, one of the two. But you'd want to quit. But there's just like mindless work where somebody's going to pay you. It seems like a vacation to me.
Sorting boxes at Amazon. You don't even have to think.
So I've raised my kids to be entrepreneurs. And
Yeah.
my oldest boys, were running their own lawn mowing business for a long time. And when they finally decided that they were, my oldest got married, the second to oldest was like, I don't know, maybe I'll do this for another year or so. He gets engaged, and then he gets married. And he's like, I'm not doing this anymore. They go to work other jobs, and they're like, they're my favorite thing to hear them say is, Dad, this job is so easy. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're folding shirts at Old Navy. Like, you were running weed eaters and lawnmowers for days, and you were helping do construction jobs, and you were backing trailers into tight spots, and you were doing, taking trees down. Yeah, I can see that being a whole lot easier. Their work, so now they've got this work ethic built into them where they accidentally look better than everybody else. And I love it.
How'd you build that into them? What did you do to cultivate it?
It was in me. Like, my parents put that in me at a very young age. I say I was raised in trades. My dad would come home from a factory job. My dad was the clock puncher. He still is. He has no desire to be that visionary in that sense. My mom was always that one. But he would come home, and because my mom's a visionary, she was like, well, you could be making all this money on the side. So she would have him running around doing all kinds of side work, like in the trades, right? So he'd work maintenance at a factory, in the maintenance department of the factory, which means he kept machines running, right? And he would come home, and he's like, okay, well, get a fresh set of food and head out to do a roofing job or hang drywall. And I would go along with him. And I thought every kid was doing that. Like, that's how you spent time with your dad. I didn't know any different. And that's how I spent time with my dad. And we got close on that level. So, I worked on and off with him from, 12 years old, all the way through to my 20s, right before I got married. I ended up working in some factories with him. He got me a leg up at, a couple companies, and I was able to jump from janitorial maintenance to management at 17 or 18 years old. I got my first taste of management because I bounced off of what my dad had taught me. And then I went and worked for a lawn and landscape, kind of like, they did everything, handyman business, electrical, snow removal, all of the things. And I went from running a weed eater 1 year to running the whole landscape division the next year. And it's all because of what my dad put in me. So when I saw that that's how that worked, and it gave me this crazy, unquenchable work ethic, I'm like, well, you're certainly doing that to my kids. So as soon as they could see over the handlebars of a push mower, they were push mowing. And They hated it, and they complained for 6 straight years. And I would get home as I take them on these mowing routes on Saturdays. Kids would make a killing, by the way, and they would just complain the entire time. And I get home and I'm telling my wife, "Never doing this again." I would be so upset that they were not appreciative until they turned 16 and they were able to buy their first car and buy those cool Nike shoes. And suddenly there's less complaining. And then all their friends were like, "How do you have all this money?" And that's when they got it. That's when they understood that, okay, I've got something really good here. If I was to go work at a Chick-fil-A, I'm going to make $15 an hour. I'm over here, I'm making $40 an hour, doing my own business. So they got it eventually, but that all came from it being pounded into me as a child. Traumatized.
I actually want to ask, well, first off, when you talked about the whole authority thing, to go back to that, I remember Brandon Cooper standing in front of me before I turned 27, literally smacking my review in front of me on the table, like, "Why won't you just get along?" And I'm like, I don't know, just something in me, I can't help it. And it was just weird because it was like, this isn't between you and I.
No way.
This is just, I think this stuff is dumb that I have to do, so I keep skipping it. And it's just because it's terrible processes. But I want to ask you this. What has been the worst loss you've suffered as an entrepreneur? How did it make you feel? And how did you come back from that?
Oh, wow.
Because we get a lot of small business, entrepreneur people, coaches, just business owners, everyone. They all get just brought to their knees. I know my moment. I know he's had his. But what about you? I'd like to hear that.
Man, I feel like we could spend an entire podcast. We got to create a podcast just on this subject.
The sad moments of entrepreneurship.
Sad moments of entrepreneurship. What not to do.
Yeah.
I would say the toughest one that rocked me, actually taught me the most about myself, that I wasn't proud of. But it helped me to kind of course correct. I had started a construction business for my dad while I was running the gym. This is in that, like, this one of 8 things I was doing at any given time, right? So we had moved gyms because Nashville was growing and expanding. I kept getting pushed out of leases, right? So someone would buy the building, they're like, "Hey, we're not going to renew your lease." So we'd have to adapt. And every time we did, we'd build the gym ourselves. Like me and one other guy that worked for me, we would go in and we'd build everything. We would put the floors in, we would drywall, we even moved bathrooms around. Like we were a machine. We knew exactly what we needed to do. And when clients would take notice, and clients would say, "Hey, well, I see that you guys did this. This looks really cool. Would you come and build this bookshelf for me?" And it got crazy because we said yes because it was bourbon money or tool money. We wanted cool tools, so we would do it on the side and wouldn't think anything of it. And then it got to the point where someone asked us to build a carport and paid us $16,000 to do it. And I'm like, "Dad, you know how you were you know how you worked in the trades?" So I pitched this business to him. He comes down and does it for a little while, and then my goal was to get him bought out in 5 years. He gets bought out, right? He's a stack of cash, able to go back to Ohio, pseudo retire. Proud moment. Problem is that he left me with this is not his fault. I have to point that out. He left me with the construction business. I had to figure out what to do with. So in the process, I am now running it because I have to run it until I can find somebody who can take it over and or sell it. So I'm on this job for some old clients of mine that I used to have at the gym. And this job goes from, "Hey guys, I can't do this for the budget that you're giving me." No, but we really want you to do it. So I learned, first of all, that I'm a people pleaser. And I care way too much about what people think. And I didn't want to let them down. So I took the job after they begged me, going against every gut feeling I ever had. It took us way longer to do this job than it was supposed to because he kept adding things and they wouldn't pay more. So I finally got to the point where I was like, I think I spent $8,000 more than what I had bid into that job. So I lost $8,000. First of all, I just signed up a new partner who was watching me lose this money in rapid fashion. And these people wouldn't be satisfied. They ultimately, I got to the point where I had to record conversations because I would talk to the husband.
Damn.
He wouldn't tell the wife. The wife would get mad at me. And I would talk to the husband. The things you're asking me to do cost money. Well, you'll figure it out. And when I tell him no, he wouldn't tell her. So she'd have this expectation that I was going to do this thing. So I had to quit the job, and they didn't understand. They were really mad at me. So I was like, let's have a meeting and we're going to go over this. So I go over there, and I think that I'm going to be able to explain to them what's going on. They berate me, and I have the recording. I think I may have deleted it by now, but I just assumed they were going to sue me. They yelled at me for an hour and a half. And I had bent over backwards. I had lost, at this point, 10K. And I was dang near suicidal on this job because I was so bummed that I lost, that our relationship was gone. Like, I officiated their daughter's wedding. I had worked with this couple for 5 years. I helped the husband lose 100 pounds. Like, and now I'm in this position where
invested.
I'm invested. Like, I thought we were on a different level of relationships, and obviously they did, because when we're in friend zone, there ain't nothing we can't overcome.
Yeah, John Maxwell talks about the form of keeping score.
Right.
Yeah, friendships that keep score never benefit.
Well, yeah, I would argue that. So what my best friend told me at that point, he's like, they're not your friends.
Yeah.
If they're acting like this now, they were never your friends.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, well, now that's great, but here I am.
It's like, you didn't help me 5 years ago.
Yeah, like, here I am, I'm stuck here. So it wrecked me, like wouldn't even drive to that side of town.
Damn.
I had saved everything. I even sent them, because they swore I was embezzling their money. Like, they thought that they were paying me and that I was spending it on other things. And they were upset that I wasn't there because I would have to go work other jobs to pay the bills. And I had to come back and try to do their thing on the side. Oh, it was such a train wreck. I held on to stuff for 2 years, expecting a lawsuit. I knew I'd win it, but I was expecting it. And I just dreaded that whole time. And I had so much regret. I had to remember, you did this for your dad and it worked. Don't worry about anything else. Like, those people aren't your friends, but in the future, don't get so invested that it becomes a part of your identity. Right? I'm basing my identity on what other people think of me.
It's powerful.
Yeah, and you have to course correct that. So it'll drive you into the ground, and like me, you'll swallow a bullet for it.
So, Jeff, I got my last one, then I'll turn it to you.
Sure.
Do you fire clients now?
I haven't, but I have been much more selective about who I take on. And I even with the magazine, character assessment's a very, very big deal. And I did have one that I'm like, this isn't going to last. And just based on the conversations that I was having about competition over collaboration, they wanted to put everybody out of business. And I'm like, oh, crap, here we go. And I was like, I knew it was going to come down to, they didn't see eye to eye with the way I wanted to do marketing. And they actually asked to not work with us anymore. And I was like, fine.
How do they plan on putting people out of business?
It's not possible.
No, it isn't, because like, I look at it like, yeah, sure, I want to dominate my competition, but Alabama does that by just the way that they show up on the field. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just a product.
Right.
Like, they're not putting out UT, they're not putting out LSU, they're not putting out Ole Miss, Texas.
Right.
They're just trying to be better than them, and by them being better, everybody's coming up with them.
Right. I think people think that competing means stepping on someone else.
I agree with that.
To get up, if the vision is to change the light bulb, how many people can I step on to get to the light bulb? As opposed to how many people can raise me up to get to that light bulb, right? They don't think about it as that in the format of, if you want to compete, just be really, really freaking good at what you do. That's it. That's the secret sauce, everybody. Just perform, take care of your people, your clients really, really well. Be a help to your community, right? Deliver a quality product, and the rest will work itself out. Period. You don't have to think about, I got to get to that neighborhood so that I can put X person out of business. And that's the conversation they actually had. That was literally verbatim what they said. Like, would you even advise us to go to that area where this competitor is? I was like, no. Well, see, that's the problem that we have with you. I was like, you have the problem with me telling you to not go there because they may have a better reputation in that space than you, and then you could put you out of business. You're not thinking this through.
That's actually very true.
Yeah.
I know we'll actually be able to get another one or two. Do you have one you want to follow up to that, or you want me to go with mine?
Well, I'm curious, what's next for Music City, Fit Expo is that
Right.
done? Is that gone? And then the Nashville, Fit Magazine, what's next for all those ventures?
Expansion.
Yeah.
Short answer. Expansion looks different for both things. Like next year for the Music City Fit Expo, we're same building, 100,000 square feet, but we're doing 2 days. Our goal is to make it the Arnold of the South. So
It's a good vision.
yeah, fun things to do, lots of competitions, reasons to be there for the community, but also in the future we'd like to make it resource driven and have an education element to it, which I think you and I can get together on in the future. I think our visions overlap in that way. Similarly, the magazine's same type of idea. The goal is to get I want to again make sure that it is actually serving the community very, very well. I want plenty eyes and ears on our marketing members, but I want to draw in as many outsiders from the community who are afraid of fitness in as possible, right? That's the goal. So whatever I got to do to achieve that with visibility, I'm going to achieve it. TV partnerships, radio partnerships. I'm working on a meeting with the mayor. And then our goal is to expand outside of Nashville and to move into other markets after that. So
We definitely need overall health and fitness in Nashville. Yeah. You walk down the street and it's a little, it's shocking. Yeah.
It is.
Me and him have talked about that.
Yeah.
That's why I said I don't understand why coaches go after everyone else's clients. I'm like, if you just walk through a Publix, there's 100 people there for you just to talk to them, and everybody would let me go through their shopping carts and help them and talk to them. It's readily available. No one knows the dangers of the grocery store.
It's true.
They go into it.
That's true. That's your next book.
Yeah, no. My next book is my book about business, which is
Yeah.
going to have the FU list in it. But that's a whole nother entrepreneur talk there. I wanted to get into something, and I'm going to, we'll take a little pause here in a second, reset everything. Terry, what do you think about paid ads? So Robo and I, we've talked about this in terms of getting a business to be recognized. You see a lot of the master classes in business, a lot of entrepreneurs say, hey, it's organic. It's just grow, grow, grow. Don't spend any money on marketing. Yeah. And I'm like, how do people find out about who you are, where you're at, what the hell you're doing, where you're even going without marketing? I think that social media degrees made it easy, but it's also made people stupid and naive to the idea about actually having to spend money in marketing to get it. They just think like, I'm going to make one post and 4,000 people are going to see it. And then everybody's going to, Terry's got Nashville Fit Magazine. I should go support that.
Yeah. Dude, I don't understand why that's a thing. Why do people even say that? Like, you don't like, oh, it's organic. I think that's a weird flex. Again, it goes back to what you said. It feels like they're just chasing glory. Mm-hmm. Like you want praise where no one cares. Like you have to pay to play. That's all there is to it. Now, I've heard this years ago in business, and I did not coin this, but if you don't have time, spend money. If you have money, or if you have, it's the opposite. So if you don't have time, you spend money. If you have so basically, if you're too maxed out and you don't have time, you've got to delegate it. You've got to pay for it, right? If you have time, then don't spend the money. So can you, at that point, what things can you leverage for free that will help you with your brand? But it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you either way because time is currency.
Well said.
Yeah, so you're spending something on it. It's ridiculous to me to think that these guys aren't like that's not a thing. You have to pay for marketing. You gotta be smart about it for sure. Like boosting a post for the sake of awareness is very, very smart. It's even smarter if it feeds your funnel. It's even smarter if you created a piece of content that goes so viral that it actually increases your net worth. That's rare, but my business partner he runs Barbell Voodoo. He spends, I don't know if he'd be comfortable with me saying this, but he's spending maybe $2,500 a month on social media ads, and he gets 8 to 10x on that every month. So the problem I have with that when people say it's organic and I don't pay for ads is that that's not how it's ever been done. There's almost always just even a little bit of that. You just have to do it smart. Don't waste your money. I've all been in those places where we wasted money, and it can look like it's not smart when you're doing it and you're not dropping enough money. So if you're going to do it and you want to do it well, make sure you have the money stored up for it, because that's usually what it takes. $500 is going to go way further on Instagram than $50, right?
100%.
So that's just the math of it all. But yeah,
I talked to a guy at a large corporation. I'm not going to name it here in Nashville and put him on blast, but he worked in their marketing team, and they do the old school stuff. Radio spots,
right.
TV commercials, sponsoring major sporting events, trying to get commercials on those. He talked about the effectiveness where he could have reduced his ad spend down to 10% of what it was and done far higher impressions.
Yeah.
But no, people get stuck in their head that that's the only advertising. Social media is not advertising, and it almost seems as though the bigger they get, the more they shy away from some of those different methods too.
Yeah, I have problems with. Radio and TV can be dangerous because they're not trackable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why social media has been so great, and your smartphone's great because I could pull up Instagram and I could show you all that metadata right now, and the TV station can't even do that.
Right.
I had a radio meeting last week, and the guy's like, we're not a member of the whatever club that tells you what your ratings are and how many listeners you have. I feel like we should probably do that in the future. And I'm like, even if that's true, fine. Don't tell me that. Like, I'm trying to be a customer. Mm-hmm. Like, you're just illustrating the point that I can't track what you're doing.
That actually makes 100% sense.
Yeah, you're going to run me off. Like,
I assume you did not give them money.
Billboards are great, right? We do billboards for the expo, but we don't do that because it generates ticket sales. We do it because it generates awareness, right? Mm-hmm. You're looking at it and you're like, oh, dang, they're that big, right?
Yeah, no, it's impressionable at that point. My follow-up to marketing, if a person is setting a marketing budget, how do you work with them in entrepreneurs? Do you tell them to do a certain percentage of their budget and kind of go from there? Because Hermosi says, like, hey, be prepared to play it like Vegas. You could lose some money.
Oh yeah.
10 ads, but if you win on one and it makes you 50, then you're still out ahead. Yeah. And I tell people, marketing is a lot like Vegas. Once he said that, I was like, yeah, it's really true. You have 20 ads and only 2 fire and 2 make all your money, and 18 are the biggest losses. But the 2 just go so far. It's like, well, hell, okay.
Well, I think that in and of itself, that subject matter in and of itself is like, people are like, oh, well, it takes more than one ad. Yeah, you just blew a bunch of people's brains just right there. Like, yeah, it takes 5 to 10 different styles of ads, and you're going to have to run it in a way to where you can compare that. You split those ads and compare them that data. But before you even get there, go look at your content. Mm-hmm. What is tracking well? What tracks the best? Mm-hmm. And whatever that piece of content is tracking the best. Just replicate that. Like, see if you can replicate that exact same thing, and then try to boost it. Pay attention to what the people are telling you. That's a full circle back to the question you asked me in the beginning. Like, that's where those 1,000 raving fans can be super powerful. What do they love the most about your thing? Great. Now do more of that thing while you're also working on your vision. Mm-hmm. So the budget part is. I usually tell them to start small, like 10% of 10%
Smart
of what you're bringing in. Yeah. And so that we can make sure that it works.
Right.
And once it works, you can put some gas on it.
We've talked to a couple guys in the mornings at the gym who are both in the trades industry, and that's pretty standard on what they spend. They're spending 10% just to keep up.
Yeah.
They're
Drew
not necessarily
was spending $28,000 a month for the plumbing stuff.
Yeah.
$28K a month in marketing, and when coaches tell me that they have a hard time spending $100 or a business wants to spend $1,000, I'm like, good luck getting swallowed up out there in the competition that is keyword matches and everything else you have to pay for.
Exactly right. Yeah. It's if you think it's important, you just now coming on to thinking it's important to spend marketing dollars and your budget's $100. There are 10 people ahead of you and they're spending $1,000.
Yep.
We had this conversation on a prior episode with Alicia where we talked about your followers are almost always your friends at the beginning, and when you start pushing stuff, they're just going to disengage. They're not looking for that crap. It's just over and over you're pushing the same stuff to them. So you start spending ads, you hit new people. You keep pushing organic, it's the same thing. And people don't seem to understand that.
Yeah, that's it. Running a marketing business, what's the there are fringe businesses where you can do awareness, or you're selling a product, so you're just trying to show why the product's cool. So you gotta feature that product. You gotta make that cool. But then there are other businesses, and I would say our business is similar. We have to educate our clientele. Mm-hmm. So if you're educating your clientele, well, that kind of changes how all of that looks. But if you're a trade, I think it's easier to market than if you're a red light therapy salon that does all these cool state of the art, seemingly holistic things that nobody knows about. You have to educate. Mm-hmm. So your awareness campaign is education based, right? For Nashville Fit Magazine, because it says Nashville Fit last name magazine, that implication is that we only have a print magazine. So I spend time explaining to people, no, we do all of these things. Oh, so I have to, I got to take my own medicine, right? I got to spend more time getting in front of people, educating them. So I appreciate the platform.
No, but that's what you said. It's about collaboration,
right? 100%.
And and I think that when you get around in business, I heard this once. When you're around, the first few years, you're looking around at each other. You're trying to figure out how to put each other out of business because you just don't like each other's competition. Sure. Yeah. You get to the 5th year, you look around. There's not many of you left. You're like, all right, you stay there and I'll stay here. Right. About the 10th year, you look around. There's only 1 or 2, 3 maybe left, and you're like, hey, how are you?
Right.
Would you like? You know what? Let's maybe like.
Let's grab a beer.
And that's one of the things where I think in the industry and all businesses, some of the senior people like us, you and I have been around a while, and even him in the industries of just with business, should do a better job of replicating us collaborating and setting the standard of going up, mm-hmm. not digging down and fighting in trenches that don't serve a purpose.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're in a pit with your competitor and you kill him, well, you're in a pit by yourself.
Yep.
It's a whole lot harder to get out of that pit by yourself.
Yep.
Right? That's the old adage, right? You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go with somebody, right? There's no reason for bare knuckle fighting here. You're trying to put out a guy out of business that may actually be a good dude with a solid clientele. He might actually be burnt out anyway. What would it look like if you sat down and talked and he'd be like, hey man, why don't we join forces? I'll come work for you and I'll bring all of my stuff with me. Mm-hmm. Like you're turning your back on potential because of this old, I guess feels like an archaic marketing thought process is that we must dominate. And by dominate, we mean if they shut their doors, we've won. Right? If that business owner, I told this to those clients that I had a little bit of a beef with. I was like, oh, so you want their kids to not eat. Cool.
Yeah, it sounds fucked up when you say it like that.
Yeah. Now, I don't know that I want to be your friend.
I want you to be asked a question, so I'll give you a moment to space to think. But I wanted to say this. I think because of what we've seen the last 10 years, where entrepreneurship has been the most heralded, it's the quote-unquote the thing that everyone should do and everyone should get into it. I think we're going to see in the next 10 years people going to the intrapreneur model, which is going to be more they identify the entrepreneurs like, hey, I want to build, but I want to do a little bit less risk.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten to know talking to, coaches with what I do for a living and other gym owners. Some of them don't want to have to deal with the taxes, don't want to have to deal with the payroll, don't want to have to deal with, they just want to show up. They're great at connecting with people. They're super communicators and they're great doing that, but they do not want to push pencils after 5 o'clock. And I respect that. And I think you're going to see that kind of dwindle down in the messaging in social media because people are going to go out there and there's going to be just massacres left and right. And then they're going to be like, man, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see it. But I'll go ahead and let you ask your questions.
I'll comment on that, then ask the question and say every large corporation over the last, 50 years just pours money into the government to create more regulation, make it tougher, and basically make an entire society of people who work for them.
Sure.
That the entire model of our society is to work for a large corporation.
Right.
We see that, and so going against that, I mean, it's painful. It sucks. Yeah, and that's unfortunately the reality. That's why I think you mean take the risk off the table because there is so much risk. If you get sick while you're an entrepreneur, that may empty your bank account. That may be your bankruptcy.
Yeah.
If you have a family and you're an entrepreneur, that scares the crap out of you every night and keeps you awake.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my question, completely unrelated to my rant, is
Good rant, though.
when you're sitting across the table from a client, what are those questions you're getting asked that say this person knows what they're talking about, or what should they be asking?
Ooh, okay, I can reflect on one of those that I had yesterday. So I had a client interaction yesterday where I do a lot, like my goal is to just do a lot of listening. I'm trying to gather pain points. If I can hear where they're the most uncomfortable, or where they have the most problem, or what's keeping them up at night, if I can hear that and I can create a solution that we can actually so I can form a solution that we can actually do. Sometimes I form a solution, I'm like, I can't monetize that. Like, I'm just going to let you have that one because I can't do anything with it. That's what it looks like for that client interaction, for me to try to help them understand that I know where they're coming from. Sometimes giving validity to the fact that I've been in business for the better part of my life, my adult life, and that I know what failure feels like, and just shoot them honestly with that. But the biggest thing I think that people like when we talk is that you get my number, and I'm not hiding behind an administrator. And if there's a problem, I'm gonna fix it. Like, that's what I do. I like doing that. Matter of fact, I work better when that happens. When I don't hear from, I have clients that will sign up with us, and I will never hear from them. And when I need something from them, like a logo, or I need their ad for the next magazine, or I need to get with them to do an interview, and I don't hear from them, that's actually more frustrating, because I can't keep my word. Like, somehow you're locking me up from keeping my word. So I think I get validity in them knowing that I know what I'm talking about, just by humanizing the business on that sense, like letting them know that I feel their pain and I actually have a plan. And then sometimes I can drop a little bit on them and be like, oh, that's a great idea. I should totally do that. Right? Like, you can give that stuff away. It's not going to come. It's a boomerang, right? That information is a boomerang every time. You give them a little bit, throw it out there, and it comes right back because they want more, or they want to work with you. One of the two. I always tell my clients or my trainers this: when you're doing consultations, the whole point of a consultation is sales, right? They may not want to purchase your product because it costs X amount of dollars, but they should leave there your friend, because they can go to another gym, another restaurant or wherever, and have a bad experience. Like, man, I really liked Ashley. Like, she was really cool. We jived, and they'll get over the money part. They won't even think about it. So they may go somewhere because it's cheap, and then realize that this is a bad experience, and they'll come back because they have a relationship now, right? And that, to me, is how you build loyalty. That's how you build those 1,000 raging fans.
My last question to wrap this podcast up: if I had a whiteboard in front of you right now, I know, me too. Where do you give the audience, in 5 years, we pulled this episode up, where is Nashville Fit Magazine? Where is the expo? You already said Arnold South, but that's small. Yeah. Where is you and your products 5 years from now as the visionary are? Where are you seeing down the road?
This is going to be a crazy statement. I hope I'm fulfill this prophecy on some level.
Well, now you got to. Speak in existence. We're going to show them power of affirmations.
Yeah.
Say it in the mirror 20
You say it in the mirror 20
times,
times and you'll get there.
I have said it a lot. My goal is to change the industry.
How do you want to change the industry?
Well,
that's broad.
Yeah, it is broad, but I think the problems that I see are I think everybody sees the same. Is that fitness? One, personal trainers don't retire. Period. Like, they don't
Nor do
retire.
strippers. We're the same.
Are you the latter?
I'm just saying, if I get past 55, I need money. We're there.
You said one makes way better money.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. The goal is, when I say change industry, I want personal training or fitness-based businesses to be a valid career option, not just a roll of the dice or a transitional job. So it means taking care of trainers. So my goal is to make a trade organization that favors the fitness industry on every level, from business coaching to retirement to insurance, like benefits, to changing the way the trainers or fitness is perceived, right? So I have resources. The education part, 100% needs to be there. I want to make all trainers need to be held to the same standard. The standards do this all across the freaking board, right? And then you'll get to a trainer who is really good at being able to train people, terrible at nutrition coaching, worse at running a business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's level that field. Like everybody on the same level. So quality, changing the quality is what I mean by changing the industry on that level. And then changing the perception to the public too. That we're not all a bunch of meatheads who just eat protein all the time. We don't spend 3 hours in the gym every day. Like, we do love to work out. But some of us work out to get out of our own way. Like, I work out to clear my mind. I work out with a to-do list right next to me so that I can write it down. So that's the big goal, trade organization. The trade organization literally is a toolbox, a resource for everybody in the health and fitness industry. It's a large goal, and it's bigger than national, in my opinion.
Yeah, our industry is not regulated.
Right.
It is the wild, wild west. He's gotten a taste
Come
of
to
it.
my industry.
Yeah.
It's pure west.
I'm sure.
There's nothing.
Yeah. And even him at times, he'll be like, no shit. And I'm like, yeah, man, like it's just part of it. But I think what you're saying, that the visionary in me, the moment you started talking about where you wanted to go and get everybody up, all I thought of was, well, how are you going to get rid of the egos that most trainers have, which perpetuates the bro stuff and all that? Because it's gotten to the point where I'm at that I'm like, yeah, and maybe we can have a little heart to heart here, but I feel like I spend more time having to validate what I've done when I'm trying to tell people where they should go with their business and stuff like that. And I'm like, whoa. Like, where if you're just starting, like I was doing this 19 years ago at a big box where you were like doing 30-minute sessions, getting paid $8 a session when they're making 50 to turn it. The industry is wide open now in terms of potential, monies and all that. And yet we still see level one leadership where people just are positional leaders. Right. And our industry is actually a permission-based industry because people are following you because they want to learn from you. Mm-hmm. They need your help. And I've noticed that the lens of those two don't line up in our industry.
I don't know that you'll ever change those type of people.
I actually don't disagree now that we just spoke about that out loud.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll change them. And I think we potentially waste a lot of time trying. But if we partner with education resources like an ISSA or an NASM, and we make it to where the trainers that are coming from them, one, get placement, but two, get a little bit of business and ethics training. It's a mandatory thing for them. This is a true business launcher because those businesses aren't, and they know they're not. I had a phone call with ISSA 2 weeks ago, and that was the exact phone call. You guys are great at educating trainers, but you're not launching them on the business level in the way that I know we can in the future. I just focus on partnerships to make, if we can get more people running through the trade organization and resourced into it out of a need, or I guess through partnering with these educational resources, that's how I think we crack that nut, right? I have a similar view on the nation. And if we just made everybody spend 2 years in the military, you could regulate a lot of the problems. Teaching kids structure, work ethic, responsibility, discipline, humility, right? Humility is the toughest one. Everybody comes into the fitness industry is entitled.
Amen. You say that all the time. I came into it just trying to walk again.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a different story. So I get it.
Right. I've had so many heart-to-hearts with new trainers who have come from, you got their exercise science degree, or they got their CSCS. And they're like, once they got through my hiring process, which was a pain, I made sure it was tough on them. They were like, okay, where are the clients? I'm like, oh, bro, that's not how this works at all. That's a little thing called sales.
Dude, I struggle with that. Yeah. He's often my ear on some of the stuff because sometimes I'm like, I don't know how to tell people, like, you got to go. There's a difference between, what did I say the other day? Between hunting and searching for your business. I've worded it something like that. Most people get up every day and just look around, and there are those who do good at it, who are hunting what they're supposed to do. And I think what you're trying to do in all industries, even what you do in the West, not even the Wild West, just the West.
Uncharted territory.
Yeah, uncharted territory.
It's Lewis and Clark.
It's out there. I think is welcome for a lot of things. And I'm generally a person that's more libertarian. I tend to be less regulations, but I do see what you were saying. In an industry that can have so much impact, you're literally coming to people, like I tell coaches all the time, the hardest part about the fitness industry, in any industry as long as, is just getting people to show up. But in the fitness industry, Planet Fitness did damage. They did tell people the gyms are intimidating. I have never seen that. If people are intimidated, that's usually their own issue. It's because no one else is usually doing it to them. But that's real damage that we have to try to overcome. And the only way to do that is to unify. And the only way to unify is to get on the same page.
Exactly.
So I think what you're doing is a good thing.
Well, and I think if we did it in a way that didn't feel like, it's like regulation that doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
We made it something that was inviting, fun, community driven, and they just happened to be learning at the same time, right? I mean, that's how I'd want to learn. I was never really a good test taker, right? Like, retention was hard. As a visual learner, I was a hands-on learner. If you make that, you make those resources in that way that appeals to trainers on that level. I think you can get around that stigma of it feeling like we're overstepping or feeling regulated, as it were. But yeah, I'm taking that. I'm going to store that because I hadn't thought through that part.
I will gladly help you whiteboard it anytime you want to. Rob, you got anything you want to say to close?
No, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys.
I'm sure we could have so many conversations just unfold after time, but we'll have to bring you back on for another one. You'll have to give me the idea of where you want to go on the next one.
We'll get you all on the Ground Up podcast.
Oh, dude, that'd be fun. That'd be a good one for us. Yeah. Where can everybody find you at? Buy your feet pictures at? Anything like that? Do you have an OnlyFans, Instagram? Do you have Venmo where people shower you with money? Whatever you want to say, it's your moment to be able to say it.
Well, y'all can find us on Nashville Fit Mag on Instagram or NashvilleFitMagazine.com. You can learn about the Fit Pro Success Summit, which is coming up in a month.
Where can people get tickets?
On the website.
Okay.
As soon as you get on there, there'll be a little pop-up box. Just click on that, and it'll take you and tell you all the information that you need to know.
Beautiful. Will you do me a favor? Will you start tagging me on that so I can start sharing all my stories on Instagram? Because we got a lot of followers from our YouTube that follow me on IG.
100%.
I would gladly share that out.
And I appreciate that.
100%.
Oh, also, it's a two-way street. So we are a marketing company, but anything anybody's doing in the community that's going to better the community, please send that our way.
100%.
And we'll repost that stuff. We're all about that.
100%. Well, Terry, thanks for joining us today. Do you want to shout out a specific Instagram or anything to follow it?
No, Nashville Fit Mag is the Instagram. So.
All right. Well, he's beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you enjoy watching him shirtless out there working out, all the good stuff that he's doing in the community here in Nashville. The South is an area that obesity is just got by its throat, and someone like him is doing the necessary work to help change our future. So thank you for doing that, Terry. 100%. Like, share, comment. Thanks for joining us again. Robo, myself, out. See y'all soon.